No one ever recommended closing the post in Benghazi.
No one recommended closing, but you had two ambassadors that made several requests, and here's basically what happened to their requests. They were torn up.
Well, that's just not true, Congressman.
Oh, Madam Secretary, they didn't get through. It didn't help them.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Friday here on the Steve Malzberg Show from our New York City studios. And that, of course, was Congressman Roscom, who did such a fine job, along with so many others on the panel yesterday. Joining us now is Governor Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, Republican presidential candidate. MikeHuckabee.com is the website. Governor, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be back.
All right. First of all, we have breaking news on Lois Lerner and the IRS, but I want to get to Hillary first because I think it's a natural transition. Talk about what you saw yesterday. Did Hillary, according to the media, almost unanimously, Hillary just stared down these guys. She excelled. She's presidential. Did she get away with it?
She probably did, and that's very troubling because 4 Americans are dead. What we did learn yesterday was that Hillary Clinton clearly lied about what happened. She said to her daughter and the Egyptian government that it wasn't about a video, that it wasn't a spontaneous attack. It was a planned attack by an al-Qaeda-like group. But what she said publicly and what she trotted out other people to say, and what she even said to the families of these 4 dead Americans, was that it was all about a spontaneous uprising from a video. So that's the first thing we learned. The second thing we learned is that she spent more time talking with Sidney Blumenthal than she did talking to a besieged an ambassador who over many months begged for help and additional security in Libya.
Was this all done? Was the false scenario, the lie that she told after she told the truth to Chelsea and the other ambassadors, was that to win the election for Obama in 2012?
You have to think, Steve, that the only explanation for them coming up with this completely false narrative that they all knew was false was that it was a political calculation. And if that's the case, that may be one of the most damning pieces of all of this investigation, that they would make a political calculation and act politically rather than act on the best interest of Americans who were being besieged by enemy fire and ultimately murdered. That is just, to me, stunning.
All right.
If we find this out.
Let me ask you, just a little while ago, the Justice Department came out with their conclusion: no criminal charges against Lois Lerner in the IRS scandal, no proof that Tea Parties and groups and conservatives were targeted. They said there was poor judgment, but nothing criminal. And yesterday you had some very harsh comments about the IRS that Newsmax.com picked up, where you called it a criminal entity. So what's your response to the Justice Department findings today?
Well, I don't think any of us are that surprised. Look, this is the Justice Department. It's very selective in how they pursue criminal charges. What they are good at and what the IRS is good at is harassing Americans who are innocent. But by the time they get through the harassment, Americans wish they were guilty just to get it over with because they have unlimited resources of the government. They put a lot of people out of business. It's stunning to me that this very IRS that demands that I keep every receipt so that if they audit me, I have to prove that I really did pay what I said I paid, but they can lose an entire hard drive's worth of emails and correspondence, and that somehow is perfectly okay, even though it violated every federal protocol there was about record keeping and having proper backups.
All right, so Governor,
I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it, and I think that once again, we've learned this is what Americans are mad about, Steve. There are 2 sets of rules in this country, one for those in power and one for all the rest of America who are getting screwed over by their government, whether it's in their taxes, whether it's in the criminal justice system, and I think Americans are fed up with it.
All right. Does this bode in any way for what we could expect for the Hillary charges? In other words, here we have Lois Lerner when it's obvious to you and me there was apparently criminal activity, at least I believe there was. Do you believe that now we could expect Hillary to walk?
I never thought that this Justice Department would go after her, and I still don't. I just don't think that's going to happen. There's been a long pattern that the Clintons have used. I've seen it my whole political life, and it follows something like this. When something comes up, they first deny it, then they deceive and say things that aren't true. We saw that affirmed this week.
Right.
The next step, there's a distraction. It's let's look the other way. Let's check something else out.
Right.
And then ultimately, the strategy is let's delay. Let's just drag this out until people are sick of it and don't want to talk about it anymore, and it will all neatly go away. And that's exactly what we've seen again.
Let me ask you about Iowa. Recent polls out, there are now 2 out, where Ben Carson has taken over or overtaken Donald Trump in Iowa. Why?
Well, it's hard to say because, look, historically, Iowa is a state where the voters break late for who they end up voting for. And there typically is, at this point, a candidate that is riding high in the polls, but it doesn't last. And I'll give you the examples. 8 years ago, it was Rudy Giuliani, and he was riding high at this point. Never even made it to the starting blocks. At this point, 4 years ago, it was Herman Cain, and he didn't make it to the starting blocks. And good candidate, but this is not that unusual. I think when the media act like that we have something here that's a real picture of what's to come, I just asked them, if we roll back the whole calendar 3 months and go back into the early part of the summer, was there any pundit in America that predicted that Donald Trump and Ben Carson would be number 1 and number 2, rolling away with big leads at this point of the campaign? And the answer is no one saw it. Everyone said they won't last. Well, here they are. Now, my point is, if they were as wrong about Ben Carson and Donald Trump 3 months ago, they might be as wrong about where this race is right now and where it's still headed.
So you say it's very possible that it will not be Carson and or Trump. It could very well be you or someone else.
I believe it will be me.
Okay.
And we'll find that out. But I think the reason is because we're still working Iowa the old-fashioned way. We're building an organization. We're building a grassroots army. We've got the largest, most extensive outreach in the counties of any candidate. And look, the one thing I bring to this is I've won an Iowa caucus, and I got more votes than anybody has ever received in the history of the Iowa caucus. So I may not know a lot about everything, but I know a little bit about winning the Iowa caucus.
Absolutely.
And I'm not that worried that somebody else is in the lead right now. Now, if we're in the same place and they're in the same place in the middle of January, then call me and I may have some pushing of the panic button.
Let me ask you about a Washington Post story. They say that Obama might unilaterally require gun shop owners to do federal background checks. This is not a law passed by Congress. What's your reaction to that? And if he does it, and you believe it's a violation of the Constitution, should there be impeachment proceedings based on this?
Well, whether there should be impeachment, that's up to Congress, but there certainly should be an absolute, unapologetic, just complete ignoring of such an order by those gun shop owners, because the president can't make law. He just can't. And the more that we surrender the Constitution to a president who supposedly taught constitutional law, and I wonder if he ever read it, the more that he keeps that power going. And it's why we have to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do it. We're just simply not going to do that because you don't have the authority to order it.
Very interesting. All right, so Governor, you're looking forward to the debate next week?
You know, I am, Steve, and one of the reasons is that every indication.
We got 30 seconds, but go ahead. 30
okay,
seconds, but go ahead.
Two things very quickly. One is CNBC has promised this is going to be about economic issues, and they've also promised that we're going to have an equitable distribution of time. That will make it a much better debate for the candidates and for the people.
It's MikeHuckabee.com. Mike Huckabee, thank you so much, Governor, for joining us again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure. Mike Huckabee, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, the Malzberg panel. Still ahead later in the show, Rick Santorum will be here. Don't go away.